Hi, church. My name's Oliver. I have the honor and privilege of serving as creative pastor here at Coastline, and I'm excited to bring the deep dive to you today as we continue in our series, Praying in Love. As we've been exploring and learning in this series, prayer isn't a thing we do, but a life that we live. We've been exploring different themes and types of prayer, and today I want to continue exploring further the theme of praying into love, as we heard about on Sunday. I want to talk about some practical ways that we can begin moving from knowing about God's love to experiencing God's love. Paul prays this beautiful prayer in Ephesians 3, verse 14 through 19. For this reason, I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and how long and deep and high is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. This is a prayer worth memorizing. This is worth repeating, worth writing on your wall. A prayer that asks God that we may be strengthened by his Spirit in our inner being, that we may be established in love, have unity with God's people, that we might be able to grasp the unfathomable love of Christ, and that we'd be filled with the fullness of God. What a prayer. A love that surpasses knowledge is a love that is experienced, not just known and read about. You can read about love. You can binge rom-coms on Netflix endlessly, but until you fall in love with someone, you never truly can know the feeling. You can be told about the love a parent has for their child. Your own parents can tell you that, but until you hold your own child in your arms, you never truly know what the love of a parent is. And you can be told what it means to be loved wholeheartedly, but until you experience the never-ending, never giving up, do whatever it costs love of the Father who paid it all in order to say to us, I am yours and you are mine, you'll never truly know what experiencing God's love is. This is Paul's prayer for us, that we would experience the fullness of God's love. And the good news is that it isn't about our efforts or our striving to earn God's love. The beauty of Paul's prayer is that he prays that God would strengthen us. Christ strengthens us so that he can dwell in us and do what he wants within us. It's the work of recreation. The Christian walk is learning to put off the old self and beginning to walk in the new self from the inside out. And the more we live in this new humanity, the more we experience God's love. I love how the Message paraphrase puts this passage. My response is to get down on my knees before the Father, this magnificent Father who parcels out all heaven and earth. I ask him to strengthen you by his Spirit, not a brute strength, but a glorious inner strength, that Christ will live in you as you open the door and invite him in. And I ask him that with both feet firmly planted on love, you'll be able to take in with all the followers of Jesus the extravagant dimensions of Christ's love. Reach out and experience the breadth, test its length, plumb the depths, rise to the heights, live full lives, full in the fullness of God. I love that there is action to this. Test the length, rise to the heights, live full lives, become who he created you to be. Reach out and experience the depths of the Father's love, because the Father is waiting, arms open for us to run towards him. One thing I know that is true of earthly relationships, that is also true of our heavenly relationship, is that intimacy requires vulnerability. David, the renowned king and psalmist, prayed incredibly vulnerable prayers. He laid it all out there to God. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the holy and hope-filled, his disappointments, his fears and insecurities, his remorse, and his confidence in redemption and deep, deep gratitude. How easy is it for you to run to God in prayer with the full spectrum of your emotions and experiences? There's an interesting dichotomy between the prayer to experience God's love and the reality that experiencing the love of God isn't always found in prayer. It's often found in places outside of prayer. We can definitely experience that love in prayer, but the prayer to be loved by God isn't always tapped into by prayer. I believe we can also encounter his love by reminding ourselves of the truth in the Word in moments of worship and by being surrounded by community. For me, I deeply feel the love of God in worship. Whether it's corporate worship at church, driving in my car, or all alone in my living room playing my favorite song late at night, I have been overcome by the incredible love of the Father so many times. And as we learn to get into his presence, as we learn to live in tune with the Holy Spirit, he will meet us in the quiet place, in the secret place. As we begin to tread a well-worn path into his presence, he will meet us there, reminding us of his limitless love. How often do you find yourself in the presence of God? What environments do you feel his presence most? Are you cultivating a regular rhythm of meeting him in the secret place? We can also grow in love and experience God's love as we see it demonstrated to us by others. As the verse says, together with all God's people. We aren't meant to do life alone. We say this all the time at church because it's true. And if you're sitting with your small group right now, you know this. From the very beginning, when God created Adam, he said, "It is not good for man to dwell alone." We're relational beings created by a relational God. I've heard it said this way, that we are found by the Father, but formed in a family. It's incredible how diverse our church is. Have you ever considered how many languages, cultures, and nations are represented in our gatherings on a Sunday? It isn't natural, but it is kingdom. Where else in the world can you experience so many races, cultures, socioeconomic differences dwelling together in unity? And as we continue to try and live out this prayer, as we continue to open our hearts and our lives to those around us, reconciling our differences and dwelling together in unity, the word actually promises that God commands a blessing. As we do life together, as we learn to bear each other's burdens, encourage those around us, and lend support to those who need it, as we begin to serve on team at church and move from solely experiencing and receiving, but to also helping set the table for others to encounter his presence, we begin to experience more of the fullness of God's love and intent for our lives. We begin to see glimpses of how he intended life to be, our lives in relationship with others and with God. This is part of heaven on earth. How have you seen God use community to experience his love? Finally, as this is a series on prayer, I want to challenge you with a new approach to prayer that may help you feel the love of the Father in a new way in prayer. I want to tell you a story about an old cowboy who was a Sunday school teacher over 30 years ago. His name was Mickey Evans. And one day he asked his Sunday school class, "Where does Jesus live?" And of course, like all good Christian kids, they knew the answer was in their hearts. Then Mickey said, "I want to take you guys on a journey, an 18-inch journey. That's the distance from your head to your heart." He said, there's a set of steps, and I want you to imagine them. The steps start in your head, and they lead down to this beautiful room inside your heart. And in this room, there are 2 chairs. In one of the chairs, Jesus is sitting. And beside him, there's an empty chair. He's waiting for you to come and sit, to be with him, to be known by him, and to pour out your heart to him. And so Mickey prayed and led the class through a prompt that I'd love to challenge you with today. So if you would, open a journal, a notepad, or your phone. Begin to write to Jesus. Imagine he's sitting right there in that chair. Your most honest prayer. Just pour out your heart to him, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. When you finish the prayer, I want you to skip a line and simply lean in. You're there with Jesus. And I want you to write what Jesus thinks about you and feels about you. Lean in. Begin to drink from the well that never runs dry. As you learn to be honest and vulnerable before God, also learn to step back and let God speak his thoughts back over you. The truth found in the Word, the truth his Spirit is speaking, they're words of life, of calling, of identity and grace and love. This is what Mickey called the 18-inch journey, or the head to heart journey, a journey into vulnerability before God, a place of abundant life as we move beyond facts that we know in our heads and into this place of experiencing intimate love of the Father and who he made us to be. This may feel foreign and vulnerable to you, but as the passage we already read started, reach out, experience the breadth, test the heights and its depths of his love for you. Be encouraged, church.